What's up, my friend? Welcome back to another video. So today I just wanted to do a Sibelius session breakdown of my title track from my Christmas album called Festive Feeling. This is one of my favorite charts from the album. I did 3 big band charts in total, and this one is the one I wanted to choose for this video because I really like having a sense of dynamics in a song. In this one specifically, it's sort of a Broadway show tune, but there's also piano ballad moments at the very beginning in the intro, and then after the shout chorus. So there's like slow, fast, and there's sort of an ebb and flow to it. So I wanted to use this example, show you the arrangement techniques I used here for the big band and for the strings. Actually, no, the strings I did separately. This is just for the big band and the rhythm section. But I'll walk you through the session, show you how I'm using Sibelius for this whole thing, and I'll also play the entire track for you just so you understand or the context of what this tune actually sounds like. Before we get into that though, if you are interested in my complete composing workflow and you've always wanted to write orchestral music in your DAW, but you're not really sure how to get that polished, final mastered sound that's like stacks up to the commercial tracks that you hear on the radio or the ones like produced by your favorite artists, I would highly recommend checking out my workshop down below in the description. It's called the Complete Composer's Framework, literally taking you through every single step of the music making process that I do. So the writing, the composing, production, orchestration, mixing, and mastering, I go through all of that, show you all the individual steps and how it all comes together to create a final polished piece of music. So you have that roadmap that you can follow every single step of the way, and it's completely free. So if you want to check that out, again, down below, it's on demand so you can watch it anytime, and it's a thank you for watching this video today. So with that being said, let's play through the entire song from start to finish, and then we'll start breaking this session down a little bit. So here we go. All right, so there we go. Hopefully you've heard the actual tune because Sibelius doesn't really sound anything like it. So Sibelius default sounds aren't great. The brass sounds, the horn sounds just aren't really realistic, and it's also sort of missing the guitar and the piano and the drums because those are all played by live players, as are the horns. But I didn't really want to write in all the individual parts here for the players. I wanted them to sort of improv and comp their way through the tune. So if you hear their actual track, Festive Feeling, on my channel, you'll hear what the song actually sounds like. But it gives you a sense of what the melody is, how the parts all interact with the horns and stuff. So let's kind of walk through a little bit. First of all, I wanted to maintain clarity in the actual visuals of the session itself. So notice here that each page basically has 4 bars. I kind of split this up into 4-bar pages. So here's the first 4 bars with the intro. This one's a slight exception because there's a 1-bar extension before we get into the Broadway section. But here you can see another 4 bars, another 4 bars, another 4 bars, etc. The other really important thing before you start writing is you want to make sure you have your rehearsal marks written in as well. This is not just good for you to stay organized, right? So you can see which section you're working on, A, B, C, for example, but it's also good for the live players because let's say you do want to give your score to real players and you want them to just practice from, let's say, bar 18. It would make sense to say, okay, let's go back to rehearsal B. That's where the Broadway session starts. Let's practice there. So it's a lot easier just to say the letters instead of squinting at the bar numbers and trying to figure out what those individual bar numbers are. So rehearsal marks are very important, as are keeping your pages clean with 4 bars phrases at the very minimum. Let's take a look at the actual music itself now. So at the very beginning, you notice how it started off quite slow. Da, 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 dun, da, dun, dun. And one thing I learned was that you want to give quite a bit of direction to the players because you don't really want to leave anything to chance. So you want to give them enough direction so they kind of know how to interpret it. But again, you don't want to make things ambiguous. So I wrote here very free with lots of rubato, right? And right now there's nothing going on in the big band. So there's no saxes, there's no trumpets, no trombones. It's all in the piano and the voice. And apologies, I didn't write any lyrics there because I already knew what my lyrics were, but this is just for the melody. And I actually wrote in this melody to give the live players a sense of what the melody sounds like. So after this little intro, we have a 4-bar lead-in with a drum fill. So it kind of sounds like this. Again, there's going to be no drum fill, but you'll hear the 4 bars. 2, 3, 4. Right, so there's basically a 2-beat fill there, and then everyone is playing this same rhythm. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and dun 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 dun. And yeah, basically, what the first thing I kind of want to really say here regarding big band arranging is that you want to have multiple articulations, especially for quarter notes. And this is something I learned from Elliot Deutsch. I took a few lessons from him. He's a wonderful big band arranger and composer himself. And he basically said, again, you don't want to leave anything to chance. Do your best to put in articulations for all quarter notes because those they can be interpreted in different ways according to whoever you're giving the music to. So you want to have either a staccato, you want to have an accent, you want to have a tenuto, or you want to have a cap accent. And the cap accent basically means that the note is short, but it's also accented at the same time. So it's like bup, bup, like it's very loud, but it's also very short. Whereas a regular accent is loud, but it's also held for longer, bup, right? The tenuto just means you hold the note for its full length. And of course, the staccato just means you play it relatively short. For the eighth notes themselves, it's not as necessary because depending on the context of the music, they might interpret it as short anyway. But in my case, I just wanted to be extra clear, so I put staccatos on the eighth notes just in case, just so we really know it's ba 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 ba, right? And I really wanted that last quarter note to be nice and accented with a short note, so I put in the cap accent there. So that's the idea there. And then in terms of how I view arrangements, typically I like to start from relatively sparse and then gradually build up over the course of the tune because I like developing, right? I like the storytelling where it starts a bit more simple and then it grows and grows and develops. So this is where the theme actually starts. If we play it here. Basically here, it's just the vocal, the rhythm section, piano, guitar, drums, and bass. And then we also have the flute coming in just to fill in the high end a little bit. Little trombone here. And maybe let's just quickly take a look at this, this trombone voicing. So here I basically stuck with closed voicing. And closed voicing is just when you choose your melody, first of all. You want to write down your melody line, But then as you voice down your chord, you want to choose the next note in the chord that's the closest to your current note. So in this case, I'm going with a G minor 7, and I know that my melody note is a D. So that means if I want to spell down to the next trombone, the next note in the chord is B flat, right? Then the next note down is the G itself, the tonic of the chord, the root of the chord, and then next is the seventh, which is the F. So that's closed voicing. When you list out the voices as close together as possible within the chord, and it stays within the octave. Then I moved on to the next note. I wanted an F in my melody, right? So then again, I go down and close voicing. F, D, C, B flat. Now in this case, C is not actually in the G minor 7 chord. However, if you treat the C as an extension, which would be, because the seventh would be the F, right? Then the A would be the ninth, and then the C would actually be the 11th. So I could treat this as a G minor 11, and so the next note down would be a C, and then followed by the seventh, which is the B flat. Not a huge deal here, but it just adds a tiny bit more crunch and color if you can treat sort of like these chords as momentary extensions here and there for specific notes. This next one is a C7 chord, basically a C9. So that means it has a D in there too. But the melody, I wanted an E there, so I just kind of voiced down E, C, B flat, G. And I could have done D here as well, because that would be the ninth, right, of the C9 chord. But two reasons I didn't do this. Number one is because you typically don't want repeated notes, one right after the other, because they could mess with the rest of the ensemble. It's easier to play stepwise directions for these instruments rather than having repeated notes. It's just a bit harder to articulate when it's really fast. So that was one reason why I went to a C there. The other one was because the ninth there didn't really matter as much. Notice how these lines are all kind of going down. So I just kind of wanted to maintain that same motion. F down to E, D down to C, C down to B flat down to G. It just made more sense to keep it going down, that stepwise motion, if you will. Okay, so that's generally the way I like to voice chords. And yeah, and then the piece continues from there. Again, notice how sparse this arrangement is, right? It's just vocal and rhythm section. Flute comes in again, and now we bring in the trombones a bit more, because now it's starting to build the momentum and the energy, right? Now with the saxes. And now we get everyone starting to come in together, building into the shout chorus. So basically, this is the first time we've heard the trumpets aside from that fanfare at the very beginning, introducing the Broadway section. So yeah, here I wanted the saxes to play a little bit faster because saxes can be very agile, and especially when they're playing stepwise motion stuff, it's relatively easy for them, I believe. I don't play sax, but as far as I'm aware, this is relatively easy for them to play. And then, yeah, the trombones are really good at doing stabs and like little pops in and out, bump, 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 right? And a lot of big band contacts, very, very common. And then the trumpets kind of come in at the very last second to lead us into the shout chorus. And when that hits the shout chorus, everyone is now playing sort of that same rhythm, all the horns. We get the syncopated da 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 da. So it's like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and sort of feel there. That's the sort of vibe I was going for in this case. And yeah, in terms of how I actually voice this out, let me quickly just run down really quickly here. So I started with the trumpet section. I started with the melody. I knew I wanted ba 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 ba, and then I just did traditional closed voicing: F D C A, E C A G. Basically, just treating this entire thing as sort of a descending line. Based on the F major chord, F6-9 there. And then same thing, D, A, G, F, C, A, G, D. And generally as a rule of thumb, you want to leave at least a major second between your top voice and your second voice down, because you don't want like minor seconds and major seconds to kind of muddy up the melody line. So you want to keep that relatively clear with at least a minor third between your top voice and your second voice down. Then I took the 4 trumpet voices and I copied and pasted them basically down into the trombones, but just down an octave. Okay? And if you take a look here, that's basically what happens. Da-dun, 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 da-dun. If we just play that, let's see, from the selection, right? We have that same line down here in the trombones. And then with the whole section, whole trumpet section, playing those 2 bars. We take that same thing, put it in the trombones, just down an octave. And then we take those trombone voices, and we put them into the saxophones. So same octave, you just copy and paste them into the top 4 saxes. And then usually what you can also do is take the top alto sax part and paste that down into the bari sax, but put it down an octave or 2. In this case, I just decided to outline the actual bass notes. Ba bum ba bum ba 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 bum, sort of what the actual double bass is, or the electric bass is actually doing there. It's totally up to you, but the lower it goes, the more you kind of want to outline the bass, because again, you don't want to introduce muddiness with other notes in the chord. So that's the tutti section there for the big band. Then the trumpets get a little bit of a rest, and the saxes are kind of playing this little while the trombones take over the melody a little bit. Right? Trombones have the melody here in unison. Saxes respond. Trumpets come in with the trombones. Tutti again. Trombones. Saxes respond, and then brass tutti, and then all the horns coming together. And I would like that little gliss up to that high note at the very end there. So yeah, as a general rule of thumb as well, you want to give people, or you want to give the players room to breathe. So notice here, right after this downbeat, I could have put in this line into the saxes as well, like the 4 trumpet parts or trombone parts, put it in the saxes, but that doesn't really give them any room to recover, because they just played a line here. I want to give them a moment to collect themselves, and then they join the rest of the section for the second bar of the remaining phrase there. So giving people places to breathe, very, very important. And then that leads us to the second ballad section, which is sort of a little break. You can consider it a bridge if you really wanted to. And then afterwards, we go back into the bombast. So let's hear from here. And again, if you listen to the actual track on YouTube or streaming services, you'll hear this is a lot more rubato. A bar 2 forward to lead us into, pick up the tempo again. Also very important in Sibelius that you mark down all the tempo changes, because you want that to reflect your ideas accurately, right? So here, notice as soon as we wanted to pick it back up to the fast part, I wrote quarter note equals 135. That's the exact BPM I wanted. And I gave the instrumentalist a bit more direction, back to the show tune feel. Ba, 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 ba. And then that's kind of how the drums are playing. And the guitar was also playing on the 2s and 4s, as I wrote here, emphasize 2 and 4. And by the way, for most like swing parts and like for the rhythm section, you can just write comping like slash marks, because again, that gives them the freedom to play whatever they want, as long as you give them the appropriate chord symbols. And again, you can do the same for the bass as well. I just decided to write it in for myself this time, because I actually played the bass in with a library in post. There we go. And then back into the Broadway section, you can see more trombones there, more stabs. Build up with the saxes. So kind of contrary motion there, which I liked. And now the whole brass section kind of comes in, so there's a bit more body. And then saxes on their own. Now we start to build to the end. Extended cadence, trombones, saxes, brass, tutti. So here I wanted the trumpets holding the highest notes all the way up to that gliss at the very end, but then the trombones and saxes are working together to build that ba 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 da motion there. So yeah, that's the idea of this chart. And I think it's relatively easy to see, just because when you space out the measures and the systems appropriately, it makes everything just that much more readable, and the musicians have to think a lot less. The more you make them think, the more possibility there is for them to second guess themselves, and you slow down the session, and in the end, it might cost you more time and money. So you don't want to do that. You want to make it as easy for them to read as possible. And this is something I learned along the way as well, right? Like sometimes the players ask me for more articulations, they emailed me with some clarification questions, and those are all great things to learn from. So definitely keep that in mind. Now, after you've written out your concert score, so I prefer to write out in concert pitch for all the different parts so I can see where they are. Then you can distribute or bring out the individual parts, right? So Sibelius gives you the option to expand all the different parts so you can see what the players are looking at for their own instrument. So this one is alto 1, they go to flute for a bit, then they go back to all the alto sax. So I went through and tried to make sure that the individual part itself was also easy enough to read and not overly congested. So I was able to fit this all on 2 pages, and it also shows me, like, am I giving them enough dynamic marks? Do they have enough articulations? It's a good way to just view the individual parts. So this is tenor sax number 2. This is trumpet number 2. So you can see it went to 2 pages there. Trumpet 4, same idea. Then the trombones, it was able to fit on 2 pages. So yeah, you don't just want to check the full concert score, but you also want to take a look at the individual parts as well, just to make sure they're formatted correctly and they're easy to read for your players. So double bass there, I've written all the different parts there for the walking bass, all the different notes. See here, I'm trying to do like 4 bars per line per system, right? And then for the drums, again, lots of slash marks, so he can improv however he wants to, but generally just keeping the time and making a groove as hard as he can. And yeah, I don't play drums at all, right? So I wanted to just give him a direction to say big fill to the finish, but I didn't want to specifically limit him on how to play that fill. This actually should have been without the stems here, because when you put in the stems, you're sort of implying that you want him to follow that rhythm, but I should have left it without the stems so he can comp however he wants there. So that's basically it. That's a quick look at Festive Feeling, my big band chart, the title track for my Christmas album. I hope you enjoyed this sort of Sibelius session breakdown. And if you have any questions about it, do let me know. I'm more than happy to answer any questions you might have about this stuff. I'm super passionate about big band, of course, in addition to orchestral music. So this is a fun little detour from my usual content, but I hope you enjoyed it. Again, let me know down below your thoughts and any questions. And again, if you want to check out my full process, check out the workshop down below, the Complete Composer's Framework. I'll show you step-by-step how I go through and write music, composing, producing, arranging, orchestration, mixing, mastering, releasing. All of that is in this workshop, and it's free. So just click down below in the description, grab it as my gift to you for watching this video today, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks so much. See you soon.